Steve here with another tabletop baseball video. This is the first time I'm attempting to record a video with some software that enables me to put my slides up on the screen. So bear with me. Hopefully this will make for a better product. So I'm going to get this up on the screen. And with that, I think we're ready to go. So the topic today is base running ratings in baseball sims, but it's really part two because back in April of 2024, I recorded a video on this topic. But something happened in the last day or so that caused me to want to record a supplement. And I'm going to talk specifically today about how to come up with your own ratings for Strat-O-Matic, for base running in Strat-O-Matic. And so with that, we're going to move along. So I show this slide every time, and what I have here is some links to some videos. The top one being the base running video that I did before. I'm going to talk about Strat-O-Matic, so there's a link to a group on Facebook where people do their own home brews of Strat-O-Matic cards, and then some supplemental links here. I'll put those in the description of the video so they're easy to find, and I think it's worthwhile checking them out. I always put the slide deck up on Google Drive in case you want to download it and look at it later. And I encourage you to comment on these videos. You can like and subscribe if you want, but the comments are really what makes it worthwhile to me. So this slide was in my previous video, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it just talks about different aspects of base running ratings in baseball sims. So feel free to pause the video and take a read on this. Unfortunately, the last bullet point got cut off the way I have the screen set up here, but it just talks about small sample size. So, is there really sufficient data for a given player for a given season to accurately compute a meaningful base running rating? So in my last video, I talked about this formula that I had co-opted from a site called pudnersports.com. This guy does a lot of work on statispro and making his own cards and so on. And he rates, therefore, his own players, and he came up with this formula for rating base running. And he has something called the running opportunity factor, which you can see here. It's basically any time you got on base other than through a home run or a triple. Arguably, you could add hits batsman to this. And then kind of the numerator is triples, stolen bases, runs, minus home runs. And the metric that he came up with is you take that numerator, divide it by that opportunity factor, and then he scales it up by a factor of 5.5. That's really not meaningful for this purpose that we're going to talk about today, although when I did my calculations, I did make the multiply by 5.5. So if you're going to use what I came up with, you're going to need to do that too. I have used this approach and this metric with many of the spreadsheets that I've come up with for creating cards for various sims. And all I needed to do is just rescale, the metric to the rating scale that that the game uses. So like statispro, I think uses for base running A through E, for example. If you want to check out the Pudner Sports statispro rating formulas, I put the link down below, and he has a few different posts on his blog, but this one went into a fair amount of detail about how he assigned some of his ratings. Okay, Strat-O-Matic. So Strat-O-Matic's base running ratings range from 8 to 17, and if you play Strat, you already knew that. And it's on a scale of 1 to 20 because they have the D20 die or the split deck that gets involved when you have base runner advancement opportunities. The rating is separate from stolen base ratings, which I like. Not everybody does, but I like. And then I've extracted from somebody's summary of the rules here when the base running rating comes into play. But if you're trying to advance a runner, say advance him from first to third on a single, or first to home on a double, or second to home on a single, occasionally you'll have the option of whether you send him or not. And most sims have this. And of course, the first thing that you do is you subtract or add the outfielder's arm rating to the base running rating to get an adjusted rating. You add 2 if there are 2 outs, if you're advancing on singles and doubles. And then there's a special rule here for advancing to third base. And another one related to a certain kind of fly ball and so on, which looks like it gives an advantage to a runner. Once you've applied all these adjustments to the batter's base running rating, you get an adjusted rating. It can't go lower than 1, and it can't go higher than 19. And so what that means is in any situation, the runner could have anywhere from a 5% chance of scoring or advancing up to a 95% chance of advancing. So that's the ratings. So on this Facebook group that I mentioned, somebody asked a question: how do I assign Strat-O-Matic base running ratings? And so I jumped in and I said, well, I think I can help. And so what I did is I downloaded the data you see here, which is some data from Baseball Reference for the 1971 Orioles. And I downloaded the data that you see on the right. And then I actually did the calculation using the Putner formulas. And so you can see the opportunity factor, you can see the metric. And then I typed in the Strat rating, which you see in the tall green rectangle. And then I ran a correlation of the metric to the Strat rating. And at least according to this calculation, there was a 90% correlation between the metric and the Strat rating, which was very encouraging. I did a separate calculation and the correlation was more 81%, but that's still a pretty high correlation. So I said, okay, I can work with this. And what I did, though, most of my spreadsheets, I have a lookup table rather than just a direct formula. And so I created a lookup table, as you see in the upper right here. And these are cutoffs for when you get to the next rating. So if the metric hits 0.95 or 0.96 or whatever, he's going to have a rating of 9. And then it goes all the way up to the rating of 17. And so what I did once I created that table and tweaked it, I went back, and you can see here in the middle of the page at the bottom, I applied the metric to the lookup table and produced a looked up rating. And so you can see for Hendricks, his looked up rating was 10 and his actual Strat rating was 10. And if you just go down the page, in most cases, they're pretty close. Now, Johnson and Belanger are not quite so close. But for the most part, these are pretty good. And so I said, okay, I have something I can work with. let's go on and test it on another team. And I chose the 1976 A's, and I partially chose them because they were kind of, instead of the swinging A's as the logo says here, they were putting on those track shoes that you see in the logo, and they were kind of the running A's. And you see that on the right side with all the stolen bases and stolen base attempts that they had. They were just running all the time. And part of me was wondering if that was actually going to obscure this this lookup table that I came up with. But anyways, I extracted their data from Baseball Reference. I calculated the metric using the formula we just saw. I typed in the strat rating, which I get actually from the card viewer app. I pay $5 a month for this card viewer app. And then I applied the same lookup table that we saw on the prior page here. I applied that lookup table to the metrics here under the logo, and I looked up all the ratings. And you can see once again, even with these A's, the ratings match the strat ratings quite closely in most cases. I did circle a couple of exceptions. You've got Phil Garner here, where the lookup is giving him a 16 rating, which is pretty fast. And I think that's just driven by the fact that the formula gives some weight to stolen bases. And Garner did have third highest number of stolen bases on the team. It looks to be maybe about a 70% or 72% success rate, which is pretty good. So I don't feel bad about the formula giving him credit. This is what's really amazing. I just noticed this, but I didn't circle it. But he had 12 triples. So arguably he is pretty fast. But anyways, the formula would give him a 16, but Strat only gave him a 14. The other kind of outlier was Ken McMullen, which looks like the assigned rating was 12 as opposed to his actual rating of 8. I thought for a minute his 2 triples were helping. He was didn't play a whole lot. I think that 56 there might be his at bats, but I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on that. In any event, but I did notice he had 20 runs scored out of the 60 some times he was on base. So maybe that's really helping him, with that rating. Now there's some obvious flaws potentially with this rating. I already talked about potential distortion from stolen bases. I think the other aspect is that given that runs are part of the formula, it could depend if you have a lot of good batters on the team, willing or able to hit you in. So this isn't going to be perfect. But if you're really struggling for a way to assign a strat rating for your homebrew cards, I think this is going to work. I will say you can shortcut this formula and not use the lookup table. If you just take the metric, multiply it by 2.99 and add 6.9, you're going to get a rating that's very close to what the lookup table gives you. But when I experimented with that a little bit here on the A's and maybe on the Orioles too, it wasn't quite as good as the lookup table because I did tweak the lookup table a little bit. So, it got cut off in this slide, but I do say the lookup table is preferred. That's really all I wanted to say. I have some backup slides that I ported over from the first video just so that they're in here. There are some other statistics you can look at Baseball Reference. There are some FanGraphs statistics that you can use. Probably the closest to the one I calculated with my formula is this BsR because it does include stolen bases. and then there's something called the ultimate base running rating. That's all I really wanted to cover. Again, comments are welcome. Hope you found this interesting. Take care. Bye.